I know not many people read them. I know not many people care. But it's still nice to find an outlet for what I saw. And I feel people have the right to know. They need to know. The arrogance of mankind is thinking that we know everything. We climb the tallest peaks, cure diseases, and even went as far as to put a man on the moon. If the first inhabitants of my island could see us now, they would surely see us as gods. Beings able to manipulate nature in ways to do our bidding in our search for knowledge. Many are bold enough to claim that there is nothing else to find here, and that our greatest discoveries lay beyond the stars of space. They forgot that there have been more men on the moon than in the Mariana. We know more about the moon than our own oceans. And I suggest they stop looking up and start looking at the sea. Fishing has been a staple for my people since the first inhabitants set foot here over 2,500 years ago. From the Kayquisio tribes to the Dutch settlers, the sea has provided food and resources, fish and salt, goods and commerce. The sea shaped us into who we are. Among the many fishermen on my island, nearly all live by the same code. The sea is as beautiful as she is mighty. To show respect is to come back from her embrace. To show dissidence is to be swallowed by the depths. I've heard stories of missing fishermen and the voices from the deep since I was no more than a little goat. As I grew, I merely chalked it up to just fishing stories and tragedies at sea. Now, I know there's something more to it. In the days following the incident of the migrant boat, we doubled our patrols, hoping to find any sign of the 7 people who were aboard before the craft mysteriously beached in a cove. Anything that we find was to be brought to the Coast Guard ASAP. We searched day and night, and the foot patrols on the beach turned up nothing. Aerial patrols saw nothing. Dives along the reefs turned up nothing but fish and the occasional plastic bottle. We searched every part of the coast, even went as far as hitting international waters, and still, no trace of the 7 people were ever found. The media labeled it as another tragedy of crisis happening to our neighbors to the south. People risking their lives in search for a better one. You want to know what pisses me off the most? The Venezuelan government labeled these people, these poor people, as traitors to the Republic. Any assistance from our neighbor was out of the question. After a month of searching and turning up nothing, the search was called off. The media eventually found some other tragedy to cover, and our tiny nation moved on like the currents. In the month during the search, I took my time to get up to speed of the goings-ons along the coast of the park. Apparently, it's not the first time something like this has happened. Sure, we get the occasional refugee boats, but the circumstances surrounding this beaching, it has happened many, many times before. People disappear and die all the time. I mean, this is a big park and accidents happen. But these are different. They even have a name for it. Fish that drowned and are lost. Classy, guys. One story I remember was from Mr. S. Now, Mr. S is the personification of an ox. You know, the teacher's husband from Full Metal Alchemist? Well, he looks like that. He's been with the service for many since before I was even born. Needless to say, he's seen some weird shit. We were sheltering from a storm in base camp. The winds howled as the thunder rumbled angrily in the dark sky, and the occasional flash of lightning illuminating the distant sea. I was brewing the guys some coffee while we waited for the storm to pass. As I brought our mugs, he gestured for me to sit down. He told of a bold rescue of a capsizing boat about a kilometer offshore from the park. The seas were rough and unforgiving, and going by the boat would have been suicidal. "This weather reminds me of that day," he said somewhat jokingly. As part of the search and rescue division, he had a crew of 4 other men. They went out by helicopter. Upon arrival, they see only the keel of the craft with 5 people holding onto it for dear life. Mr. S readied himself as he lowered the rope to bring these people in one by one. As time passed, the further the boat sunk beneath the depths. The wind and rain made it difficult, but after what seemed like an eternity, they had 4 people aboard the helicopter. By the time the last person's turn had arrived, the boat was gone, and he was all alone in the water. Guy had his life vest on, so not only did he stay afloat, it was also still easy for me and the pilot to see. I get down to him, and the guy is besides himself, screaming and flailing like a madman. He said that there was something tugging on his shoes, he said laughingly while mimicking the man's screams. The rest of my colleagues laughed with him as I remained silent. "I've heard about this," I interrupted. Yeah, I was 13. You were the guy on the rope." He raised his hands up. "In the flesh. Now, where was I? Ah, right. So, the guy's freaking out about something touching his leg. At first, I thought it might have been debris from the boat that he was kicking into. Until I felt it too. I'ma tell you now, kid. I've done a lot of boat rescues in my day. Felt plenty of shit that said boats left behind. But whatever that was," he pointed to the ocean, obscured by the rain and darkness, "weren't no floaty. It felt like something was picking at my fins, as if testing the material or something. I told the guy to calm down while trying to also calm my own damn nerves. He held still long enough for me to get a harness on him. I gave the signal, and we started going up. When I was about 3 meters above the water, I looked down at the guy's face. Looked full of hope. His voice began to grow solemn. He started rising out of the water. His face went from hopeful to horrified. He was pulled under, and the rope got so tight that I thought whatever it was gonna pull the hellion with me. It took a few seconds, but the rope slacked, and the empty harness was pulled out of the water. Searched for weeks, never found a trace of him." "I remember," I said, trying to sound reassuring. "Don't worry, nearly messed up a $10,000 harness though." The crew started laughing at this remark. It caught my silence. "Don't worry, kid. You kinda get desensitized after a while." "But I remember that day," I spouted. "The news said a shark had gotten to him just before you pulled him in. Other than extreme bad luck, there's nothing weird about it." Mr. S began to laugh at my remark. "A shark? Is that what they told them?" His face grew serious. "Look, kid, I know for a fact that ain't no shark that pulled that man under. What pulled him had gray, human arms."